Okay. So the news is in. It is breaking. It has happened. They have done multiple press conferences. We have the information behind this decision. Kevin Stefanski was let go of. And in the second half of this video, we'll go over the specific reasons and what it is about Kevin that put him in the position to get fired today. But what I want to focus on right now is just kind of the stuff that is broken immediately, right? So Daniel Ofoise, he did a good job transcribing a lot of what was going on. He put out there was some speculation about this, but I'm told Barry won't change his GM/executive vice president of football operations title and role. The Browns won't fill the role of Paul DePodesta, who served as the chief strategy officer before leaving in November to become the Colorado Rockies president of baseball. He then goes on to say that the Browns plan to replace him with other people, replace him with a team effort behind the scenes, which makes sense given that Paul DePodesta's role by the time that he left had become a largely part-time role. Now, I know that some people view Paul DePodesta as like this boogeyman behind the scenes that was secretly running the team. That's not the case. That's not what was going on. Andrew Barry has been in charge of football ops pretty much since he's gotten a job, but more so over the last 2 years, he's gotten even more control, as obviously they have kind of stepped away from DePodesta, not because DePodesta is bad at his job, but just because his role was to put together a structure, right? To put together a long-term strategy for the team. And once that was done, he didn't really have much to do. So I know there's a million conspiracies about Paul DePodesta. I think people are too fascinated with it. I don't think it's as fascinating. I don't think the reality is as fascinating as the stories that the community has made up about him. I think it's kind of rather dull once you really dig into it, the actual truth about DePodesta. But that's a battle for the future to fight. Daniel Ofoise also said the Browns were non-committal about a 2026 starter, but said the incoming coach will have a big say on the quarterback position. So this is to do with Shedor's future with the team. This is expected that whatever happens at quarterback, the new coach is going to have a big say on. The way that these interviews work is that coaches come in, they pitch what they think can help the organization. The organization then pitches what they think would be a good plan or kind of not really critique, but they just jump in with like, okay, what they could do, what they couldn't do. And based on how that conversation goes on both sides of it, that's how you determine who takes the job, who doesn't take the job, right? If a coach comes in, he has a plan that aligns really well with the general manager's plan with the Cleveland Browns, then that's going to be something that's going to make him an easy hire, right? That's just one example of how it could work. But yeah, the coach is going to come in, whoever the coach is, they're going to have, some kind of plan about quarterback. And, the Browns will do their best to try to fulfill that plan. We'll see what happens going forward. But, I would say with the new coach, nothing's guaranteed at the quarterback position, especially when your quarterbacks are Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel. And all three of these guys over the last couple of years or when they've played have been very underwhelming at the position. So would not expect that somebody comes in and it's like, oh yeah, I'm balled in on that quarterback room. It's probably one of the worst ones in the NFL, for being honest here. So definitely some changes coming to that quarterback room. We'll see what happens there. When asked about the offensive line last season, GM Andrew Barry said when the organization made a strategic pivot last year, understood that they weren't going to be able to accomplish everything in 1 year. Barry said he does imagine a fair amount of turnover with 4 week 1 starters hitting free agency. Just a confirmation that the focus this year is going to be on the offensive side of the ball, which I think is a good thing. Daniel also pointed to, he said it was a tough day given his relationship with Kevin, but they had to move on. Barry alluded to the game strategy, in-game decision-making, development of players, as areas of the organization didn't see enough progress. So I think this is a good thing that they know why they're firing Kevin. Right. That indicates to me that this isn't a reactionary decision. That indicates to me that this was a process driven decision based on what they know in house. And they felt like the game strategy, the in game decision making, and the development of players were just not good enough from Kevin Stefanski. And I would agree when it comes to the game strategy. I don't really have a beef with his in game decision making as much as other people do. But the development of players also was a issue too, right? And that kind of alludes to how things work under Andrew Berry, where the head coach, the offensive coaches get a lot of say in who the Browns bring in to develop, especially draft picks. And if you are having a say on these draft picks and these draft picks aren't working out, then that's going to reflect poorly on the coaching staff. And I think there's a reason why there's such a stark difference of the defense's ability to develop third and fourth and fifth round picks and the offense's ability to develop third, fourth, and fifth round picks, right? There's been a stark contrast there. And if you really want like an even better example of this, look at how difficult it was for the Browns to develop players under Joe Woods when he was the defensive coordinator here, and how that magically shifted once Jim Schwartz took the job, right? I think one staff did a better job of developing those players than the other staff did. And I think that started to become a big problem for the team overall. So, yeah, I think there was a quote from Jimmy Haslam, too, that the Browns expected to be better than what they were this year. I felt like that's the case. Again, expectations, if you go by a win-loss record number, it's usually not how things work, right? It's about the journey instead of the literal result, right? You can end up with a record that you thought you'd be happy with, but the way you get there is completely underwhelming. And I think the Browns are in that category where, like, I don't think 5 wins was like the worst thing in the world to them coming into the season. But given that you got to 5 wins with the second consecutive year of having a historically awful offense, that certainly did not reflect well on Kevin Stefanski, who is the head coach, mainly because they feel like he has the prowess on the offensive side of the ball. Andrew Berry said that the new head coach will not be asked to retain anyone on staff. Ultimately, that will be the head coach's prerogative. So if the coach wants to keep one of these guys that they have on staff, they'll keep him. If the coach doesn't, then they won't, right? There's not going to be no mandate for the Browns to force a coach to keep like a Jim Schwartz or something like that. So that's what we know about the head coach opening. We're going to talk more about this, but real quick, let me thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right, so let's talk about why it is that Kevin is being fired, right? The things that they felt like he had to answer to and he could not answer to. Now, this is an interesting thing to talk about because if you listen to like regular mainstream sports talk radio, they try to make the argument all the time that like Kevin's not a leader of men and he doesn't have the locker room and all this like goofy stuff that like has never been the problem with Kevin, but people just assume it is because they think Kevin's like a nerd and an analytics guy, and that means that he solves every problem with math and has no people skills. Basically, there's a lot of people who have always been off about their perception with Kevin Stefanski that have the wrong reasons for why Kevin would or would not be fired. He has never lost the locker room. He clearly has the respect of the players in that locker room. The players in that locker room respect him. They think he's a good coach. They're willing to say it, like more so than any coach in Browns history. And this is something to consider. those players go hard for Kevin, right? They say he's a good coach. They say he shouldn't be fired audibly. But hey, you know, so if you're thinking that Kevin needs to be fired because he's not a good leader, you're probably wanting to fire the wrong person, right? If you are only worried about that quality in your head coach, you should not want to fire Kevin. Kevin's been good at that. Kevin's fine at that. That's not something about Kevin that would be fireable. What is fireable for Kevin are three things, right, that don't revolve around him as a people person or a manager. He's good at those things. The three things that are going to get Kevin fired are simple. Run game production over the last 3 years. Pass game production over the last 2 years, coordinator hires. Those have been the three things that have whipped Kevin's ass while he's been the head coach of the Browns. It's interesting because this is a completely different flip of what the perception of Kevin usually was, especially around the time that he won the Coach of the Year awards, right? The perception of Kevin is of a guy who was an offensive genius, but somebody who would probably, most people assumed, would struggle with the people stuff because, you know, he's more of a technician. The reality of Kevin is somebody who's actually really good with people, great people person. I know he doesn't come off friendly in the media, but I swear to God, everybody who's ever had a genuine conversation that I have had the pleasure of talking to, talk about Kevin Stefanski, they fucking love him. Like most people like him. Even some of the people in the media who get to talk to Kevin when he's not in like head coach mode, they like him. They think he's a personal guy. He's real interesting, right? There's that kind of Bill Belichick quality to him where he's kind of a dick to the media, but you talk about people who know him behind closed doors and they like him. They think he's a real personable guy. It's the complete opposite of what you would think from watching his press conferences. But that's the perception of Kevin. The perception of Kevin is this offensive genius. The reality of Kevin is he's a great personable person who struggles with the architectural stuff when it comes to the offense. So run game production. Since 2023, the run game has been underwhelming. Keep in mind that the Browns have spent money on the run game since 2023, right? Spent money on Nick Chubb, spent money on the offensive line. Keep in mind, during the point of the Browns run game taking this dip, especially in run blocking, this is around the time that the Browns were the highest paid offensive line in all of football. So, you know, a lot of the excuses about this year and the last couple of years, when people are pointing to the roster not being good, I don't think that really accounts for the fact that these guys got paid based on Kevin's recommendation. And because of that, they were the most expensive offensive line in football for a couple of years while the run game was producing very little. So the run game production, the lack of efficiency from the run game, the fact that it feels like the Browns are probably the least creative run game in the NFL, despite the fact that they're paying multiple offensive linemen top dollar over that same period, that's a big reason for the lack of belief in Kevin as an architect, right? What happened with the offensive line, the run game over the last 3 years? It wasn't just Ken Dorsey, right? This was 2023 with Alex Van Pelt. The run game started this decline, right? Really, since 2022, there's been a sharp decline of the run game and some of the philosophy behind what the Browns do, right? Their big innovations would be very underwhelming. They were like, oh, we're going to innovate the run game, and it's really just like a center playing fullback, or it's Aiden Huntington playing fullback. Oftentimes, those big creative packages that they go to aren't very effective. There was like that one set of plays that Kevin really leaned on in 2023 around like QB sneaks that worked really well. But once that got figured out, he had no counter. The run game stuff is where Kevin was exposed the most as not really having it from a schematic standpoint in the way that a Matt LaFleur or a Kevin O'Connell seems to have answers. The pass game production over the last couple of years, I think there is a level of exception that I would have for mediocre results in the pass game over the last couple of years. I don't think I can accept historically bad 2 years in a row. Success rates have just been bad. And I know people always point to, well, the roster's not good, but I truly do believe the last 2 years, they have been underperforming that roster. And let's also keep in mind, Kev has fingerprints on the roster as well. Like Kevin's not like a hostage in this process when it comes to who's on the roster. He says it. Andrew Berry says it. Everybody involved with the roster says it. It's a collaborative process. Kevin has a thorough say in what happens with the offense and who they go to on the offensive side of the ball as far as free agency, trades, and all of that. Very rarely does he get caught surprised by something. Like the Joe Flacco thing, when they take a player away, maybe he can be caught by surprise by something like that. But when they're going after a player, that is something that Kevin has a say in, right? And the players that they have accumulated on that roster, I do think are better than some of the results. Again, last 2 years, I understand the situation they are in because of the Watson trade. I would have accepted bad. They were like 26th, 27th. I would have accepted it. I've been like, hey, he's doing the best with what he has. But historically bad, 2 years in a row, can't accept it, right? That's Joe Woods level bad. We all knew what needed to happen once Joe Woods hit that second year in a row of being historically awful. He needed to go. The same is true of Kevin, right? It is what it is. He wasn't good here the last 2 years, and we can make excuses for what the roster is, but there's nothing that excuses the Browns being historically bad in the pass game in some major stats 2 years in a row, right? EPA, success rate. These are things that Kevin shined at. He's been terrible the last 2 years. There's a level of excuse that I would have been able to accept, right? If we could only get to a Jacoby Brissett level offense, okay, I get it. Tough hand, right? If we were slightly below Jacoby Brissett level offense, I would accept it. I wouldn't want Kevin fired. I'd be sitting here fighting with people in the comments that he should be here. But historically bad 2 years in a row, it's kind of hard to get over. Another thing that's kind of hard to get over with Kevin, coordinator hires. God-awful coordinator hires, right? We're talking about some of the worst coordinator hires in the league. He's fired a coordinator at every single coordinator position in 5 years. He's fired a special teams coordinator. He's fired a defensive coordinator. He's fired multiple offensive coordinators. And the concerning thing is that only one of those hires actually fixed the problem, right? Like that's the biggest thing for me. One hire solved the problem, and that was the hire from all accounts he was least involved with, which is the defensive coordinator hire in Jim Schwartz, who seems to have a lot of connections with Andrew Berry, and from the reporting around the situation was more of an Andrew Berry-led hire. So Jim Schwartz, the one hire he had less to do with, that's the coordinator that actually fixed the problem. They had to fire the coordinator that he brought with him that was his homeboy from Minnesota in Joe Woods. Then he had to fire another one of his homeboys from Minnesota in Mike Prefer. And then he had to fire another one of his homeboys from Minnesota in Alex Van Pelt. He replaced Mike Prefer with Bubba Ventrone, who people dislike more than Mike Prefer. And he replaced Alex Van Pelt with Ken Dorsey, who got replaced by Tommy Rees. None of these hires, right, that Kevin was point on fixed the problem. That is a bad track record to leave behind. You gotta have a good eye for coordinators if you're gonna be a head coach. Kevin does not have that eye. Even if we're talking about demoting Kevin from not having control over the offense and putting him in a more CEO role, that puts more emphasis on his ability to hire coordinators, and he's not good at it. It's the worst thing consistently about Kevin Stefanski. If you want to rank the worst things about Kevin Stefanski, coordinator hires, run game production over the last 3 years, passing game production over the last 2. It's been the worst things about Kevin, right? Is there a good coach in Kevin? I think so. Is he ready to be that coach? I don't think so. Right now, no. I don't think he's there. I think he needs to figure out why he hires so poorly from the coordinator position. I think he needs to figure out what he needs to learn to be a better run game mechanic, to be a better pass game mechanic, because he's not there. I think he will get another opportunity, and if he does, he has a chance to stick because he is a great manager of people. He gets people motivated to come into the locker room that shouldn't be motivated at all. Like he gets these guys to play for him in situations that I couldn't imagine anybody getting them to play for. And that's going to get him an opportunity to be a head coach again. I don't think he has those 2 Coach of the Year awards by a fluke, but I do think he's not struggled the last couple of years by a fluke. I think this is also to his own accord. Ultimately, we can be upset about it. We can think it's a mistake, but he dug his own grave here in Cleveland. The question isn't, has Kevin Stefanski done enough to get fired? I think the answer is obviously yes, he has. The question is, should we just give him a pass and hope he gets better? Right? Like, I feel like the conversations we're having about Kevin, or had about Kevin leading up to this moment, were the same conversations somebody has when they're with somebody who cheats on them. Right? And the question isn't like, hey, has that person done enough to justify you leaving? No, they cheated on you. You're free to leave. The question is, do you want to believe in that person again? Do you think you can believe in that person again? Can trust that person again to be the person that they promised they would be at the beginning? That's what Browns fans are with Kevin. Like, nah, there's reason to do it. The question isn't if there's reason to do it. The question is, do we want to let him get away with it or not? Do we think that there's more upside to letting him get away with it than not to let him get away with it? I tend to believe that you got to hire people you believe in. They don't believe in Kevin, then, well, got to do what they got to do. So is it Kevin's fault that he's going to be fired? Yeah, I think he contributed to the problems that they have. I think he is responsible for enough to where you could justify it. Is there a risk to firing Kevin? Certainly. He could figure it out over the next couple of years, become a great head coach, and then people are shitting on you all over again and doing the whole Baker Mayfield thing, right? That can't be the reason that you keep him or not keep him, though. We can't do this all the time. We can't just hang on to somebody because we think they might be good one day. If it's not right for them to be the person for the Browns right now, then you got to let them go. Just let them go. They're not going to become what you want them to become under you. And we got to stop just like doing that to ourselves, where it's like anytime somebody has success and then it's not in Cleveland, but they used to be in Cleveland, we beat ourselves up about it. We got to run our own fucking race at some point and stop worrying about what everybody else has to fucking think. You know what I mean? Do what's best for Cleveland. Like, that's got to be the decision-making process, not what's best for us to not get made fun of by some asshole who doesn't even care about the Browns. What would they look for to replace Kevin? Again, they're not replacing Kevin because he's a bad manager of people. They're not replacing Kevin because he doesn't have the locker room. They're replacing Kevin to fix 3 specific problems: a bad eye for coordinator hires, passing game production, not great, and run game production. You got to hire somebody who at the core of them solves those 3 problems, has a way to solve those 3 problems. Will the replacement be in-house? I doubt it. If the Browns wanted to keep continuity, they probably shouldn't fire the coach, right? Like, if their goal is to keep continuity, don't fire Kevin. Believe in Kevin. Put your resources into Kevin and see what he could do. If your priority is solving the problems on the Browns offense, then I don't think that the hire is going to be in-house, because we got the fucking problems right now with these people running the offense right now. You know what I mean? Like, how's that going to solve the problem? Anyways, so no, I don't think the replacement will be in-house. How can the Browns get this right? They just have to be focused on why they're firing Kevin and why they're hiring the new person. If they hired a new person for specific reasons, they'll get specific results. And those results could be positive. I don't think it's going to be that hard for the Browns to get this right. I know people are painting a picture of a job that nobody wants, but the Browns' job, it's perfectly as bad as every other job available right now, right? There's no job with like the Bengals job. If that opens up, okay, that's a better job than Cleveland because they got Joe Burrow, right? But again, there's 2 tiers of quarterback of coaching jobs available. Teams with a definite quarterback and teams that don't have a definite quarterback. Every team that's looking for a coach right now is in tier 2. Right? Maybe the Raiders aren't there. Maybe for the right person, the Titans aren't there. But for the most part, all these jobs are in the same tier. I don't think that they're going to not have access to the same candidates that everybody else will. So they will be able to have access to the same candidate pool. They got to do their work, be specific, find the guy that fixes the problems, and be open to things looking a little bit different than maybe they were expecting coming into it. If they stick to a process, if they focus on hiring somebody for specific reasons, then I think they'll be fine. You know, if they are unfocused, looking at glamour hires and trying to solve more than just a head coaching problem with the coaching hire, then yeah, they're going to be fucked. They're going to do the same thing they do for the last 20 years. But if they stay focused, stay on the process that they did when they hired Kevin, right? If they stick to the same process that found them Kevin, I think they can find somebody else who'll be good. That's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.